Well, it's the hottest weekend on record in Portland in history. It hasn't even hit 107 since 1981, and we're expected to hit 115. So this is insane. It has me missing snowboarding, so enjoy this snowboard montage of the past year with my favorite highlights from my travels and some of the new tricks I learned. So this was at Grand Targhee, which was insane. They have dry powder, very, very low moisture content, so the snow was just going over my shoulders and I couldn't see my board, something I'm not used to because Mount Hood has very wet and thick snow. So I've never really had to ride too much snow where you actually have to lean back when riding. Usually at Mount Hood you just float, but this was insane and you literally get buried. This was just a quick little race that we did at Timberline on Magic Mile. I wouldn't really call it a race, but we just decided to go flat base wide open and see how fast we could go. By no means it wasn't a speed record. I only topped out at 54 miles per hour, so not really anything too special, but it was still pretty fun to be able to go that fast side by side with someone else, because usually my other friends and people I know don't ride as fast. But yeah, none of these clips are in particular order. Not like top favorites, not in the order they happened, just how Premiere Pro put it. But that was my first cliff drop, so I was kind of happy about that one. I didn't jump too much. This looks like some pretty early season riding because Oregon's really high latitude, so it's always kind of dim. But yeah, some powder. We were going off some of the runs. And for the most part, before this season, I was a groomer boy, so I didn't really go out of bounds too much. And that was my first back shifty. I'm kind of happy I finally learned back shifties because I only had ever really done grabs off of jumps, so starting to get some variety. But this was a nice December morning, insane sunrise and being above the clouds at Mount Hood, which is, it's just breathtaking, so enjoy the beauty of it. It was pretty cold, but I mean, you're just not going to get this anywhere else. Just a little 50-50 to board side. That was my first ever front shifty. I can't tweak them as good as my backside ones, and they're just not as fun. That was me attempting melon grabs, so I did learn melon grabs this season. This is one of the smaller terrain parks because it was the only one open at that point. I got a little better at back 180s this season too. Still haven't really been able to throw 360s off jumps, but this was a nice little line. And I also finally officially learned 50-50 front boards this season. That was in the beginning, so I was happy about that. That was some weird butter. I didn't really press it too hard, so sorry. Hopefully I can get a better board for butters and presses. This is a 158 wide, and it's fairly stiff. So this is the first time it ever went out of bounds. This was outside of Timberline. So they had some steep ridges. There's some ice right here. And here's tree runs when we were out of bounds. So we were so far out of bounds from Timberline that you just have to cut through a big forested area to get back to the resort. And if you don't do it at the right spot, then you will pretty much be stranded and you will have to hike and you're screwed. So there's probably more distance you have to cover in trees versus the special wide open powder field that we normally go ride at. But some of my friends enjoy tree riding. I think it's fun sometimes, and it's nice to go get powder stashes. The only problem with Timberline tree riding, as you can kind of see, is it's fairly flat, so you have to keep your speed up. You have to pump through the little bumps. Some of the trees can get tight, so if you scrub speed, you're pretty much unstrapping. And yeah, so my legs do not bend that well because I'm overweight. I will admit it. I'm trying to work on it. But my shock absorbers do not enjoy the trees, so it's not really a matter of skill for me. I don't mind it. I got good reflexes, but if I'm riding too far distance in trees like this, my legs really start to lock up. So here's some more of that out of bounds powder. I absolutely love riding off-piste, out of bounds, off the runs. Super fun now. Because like I said, before I was a groomer kid, so I'm very glad that my group of friends pushed me, because before that they always made fun of me for the groomers, and they said ride with us and you'll get better. So they kind of, I guess, force you and peer pressure you in a positive way to step out of your comfort zone. So I'm grateful for that. Had a lot of fun doing all that, and now it makes me actually want to try more stuff at other resorts. So that was my first melon grab, and then I kind of glanced over it, but yeah, quick melon grab. And then this guy was just doing crazy spins. I was actually riding pretty fast there. I think my GPS was clocking at 38 miles per hour, but that was at Jackson Hole. This is Jackson Hole from the very peak. I went around Corbett's because this was during the first week of February, and they didn't have as much snow coverage as you would think. There were signs everywhere saying cliff, low coverage. I think they got a dumping on later, but I definitely wasn't going to try Corbett's when it only had, I think, like 4 inches of snow and pretty low coverage. And this was at the beginning of my trip that I was doing, where I hit 18 resorts in 20 days. So you guys can go check out that series if you haven't. So yeah, I went to a butt ton of resorts in 3 weeks. But I waited 2.5 hours in the tram line because this was a powder day. They were having natural selection going on with Travis Rice, and Shaun White was there. That was just a coincidence. I had no idea that was going on. But they were having some wind hold issues, so the tram was crazy, and they were only letting like 10 people at a time onto the tram because of COVID, and so normally it allows a lot more people, but it was just very limited to allow a few people on for social distancing. But I was trying to get some powder stashes that were kind of left over. It's a very, very high vertical drop at this ski resort at Jackson Hole, and so my legs were killing me on the way down, but the views were pretty cool, even though it wasn't a real bluebird day. But I was going to get my money's worth and try to get the untouched powder stashes, as you can see is what I'm doing in this video. So I'm not like trying to race down and do it properly. I'm just seeking out like a snowboard heat-seeking missile to find some powder, which it was very similar to Mount Hood's powder, where you kind of stay above it for the most part. I mean, you can kind of cut through it, but yeah. This was a really fun day at the end of the season. This was Mount Hood Ski Bowl. As you could see, I had to get checked and cleared by Ski Patrol to do this. This is a hike to Double Black Diamond at Tom Dick Peak, the very top of Ski Bowl in the Outback section. And he was just giving me some pointers saying hook over to the far left. So yeah, it's definitely a lot steeper in person. You'll see when I look back up the mountain. Yeah, I had to wait for the sun to kind of soften it up, because some of the snow was kind of icy. And he was saying hook around the left of the cliff, so you don't want to go too far to the right. So, and then I saw a few people, so I just had to cut over to the left. And it was pretty fun. The views were insane too. Obviously you're looking straight at Mount Hood, because normally you're riding on Mount Hood, so you don't get a view of Mount Hood. You could see some backcountry split borders there. Definitely hike to backcountry. So this got me really into wanting to hike to spots, because the only other spot I had hiked to was Gun Barrel at Monarch Mountain. But yeah, there's the cliff that I started at the very top there. It's pretty steep, as you can see when you look up. Here's our backcountry powder spot again at Timberline. And as you can see, versus like when we were at Grand Targhee, the board just stays on the snow. That's the only thing that's kind of sucky, I guess you could say, about Timberline and Mount Hood Pacific Northwest powder, is there's not really any like cold smoke. But the nice thing is you don't really have to lean back as much, so it doesn't kill your legs as much as other places, and you don't have to worry about the nose digging into the snow and slingshotting you forward or any of that. So you don't really have to do too much of a step back stance, and you don't have to lean back, so you kind of just stay on top of the powder, and it still has that same nice feeling of like floating in a surfy feel. So this was out of bounds too. I'm sure you guys could tell because there's no marks or runs. Yeah, it's probably like my favorite run at Timberline. Well, not even a run, but my favorite thing at Timberline is going on a bluebird powder day off the top of Mount Hood whenever they open the upper lifts. So the snow wasn't that deep, but it doesn't get touched as much, so you don't have to worry about being too bumpy. As you can see, kind of smooth. There were a few little ice patches. You can kind of see the little darker spots in the snow, so if you try to skid or slow down on those, you will really start to scrape, and it's kind of loud and scary. So yeah, just a really nice big wide open powder field. And that was my friend Brian, if you guys saw in the left corner, doing a huge ollie. There he is, ollieing over another boulder. Here's our secret spot. Not telling you guys where it is, but yeah, like I said, the point of this video is I finally was able to start riding out of groomed runs, out of the resorts, and do a lot more backcountry type riding. And it's just absolutely amazing. So I'm glad I stepped out of the comfort zone there. Got a little better at park riding, but I wasn't feeling it too much. Definitely I'm getting to the point where my weight is limiting me from bending my knees and sucking my legs up on jumps and being able to like pump and deal with the shocks and all of that. So yeah, nice little natural jumps out of bounds. And I think this is the last little out of bounds clip. It was powder and ice, but we're just cruising above the clouds. So yeah, hopefully this heat wave is over, and enjoy.